Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's webcast, we're talking about ransomware attacks on hospitals. We're taking a look at what's going on with this concerning trend and how hospitals can best handle these attacks. To discuss that, I'm joined by someone who knows a lot about the topic. With me is Marty Momdjian, Executive Vice President and General Manager of Semperis. Marty, absolutely thrilled to have you with us today.
Thanks, James. I'm happy to be here.
So let's do a sort of a nutshell portrait of Semperis. Obviously, a lot of people know about the company already, but for those who aren't as familiar, how does Semperis serve its clients?
We're essentially a nutshell Active Directory and identity security and resilience company. Our main focus is protect Active Directory, protect cloud identities, and make sure customers are resilient, able to recover, and that they have a good premier security solution in place for it.
There's certainly a market for that, no doubt, and I would even say an urgent market. Speaking of which, we hear that hospitals are considered an easy target for ransomware actors. That's really bad news. Of all the organizations you would wish would be left alone by malicious actors, it would be hospitals and health organizations. So why is this true?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's just everybody's kind of an easy target, right? What's unique about healthcare and hospitals is it's critical infrastructure, right?
Hmm.
It's the severity of impact is very, very high. So when adversaries, threat actors, state, nation-sponsored bad actors, when they target healthcare organizations,
Hmm.
they know the damage can be very severe, and they know the impact can be very severe, and they know that healthcare organizations can get backed into a corner to pay the ransom. And I think why we coin it as an easy target. It's not that they're easy. Their IT systems are extremely complex, right? They're
Okay.
extremely complex. There's a lot of legacy systems. Vulnerabilities are harder to manage. There's a lot of IoT devices. There's a lot of points of entry into healthcare organizations. And
Hmm.
that's where really they become an easy target, right? It's just heavy reliance on technology at the end of the day. And their
Just
environments are super complex.
one interruption. Sorry, you talked about the legacy. I would guess that maybe the healthcare IT infrastructure might be a bit more legacy than some other organizations, other sectors, in that it's so expensive to upgrade the IT. So it's maybe some of that infrastructure is lagging a bit in healthcare IT, perhaps.
It is and it isn't, right? What if you look at healthcare? I've been in healthcare almost 20 years now,
Okay.
and we spent billions of dollars, if not more, on modernizing healthcare IT infrastructure on the EMR,
All
right?
right.
Let's engage the patients where they are. The pandemic happened. We spent even more money on technology for remote care, remote access. Really, what's become legacy is in healthcare, the technology that's implemented has to work. And operations wise, the EMR, the modern EMR does a very, very good job at being a medical record system, right? At a clinical access system, at a patient access system. What
Right.
they don't do really that well is the security aspect of it.
Ah.
And
Okay.
now that's where it's become extremely complex of, what's new now is legacy in 5 years. But if it's still working very well, why spend more money on trying to modernize it again?
Of course. Of course. Well, I guess the other part of this is, so do hospitals tend to pay ransomware more frequently than other organizations, other sectors?
Um, in some sectors, yes, right? If you look at our ransomware risk report, we went out and did a survey of hundreds of organizations. And what stood out was number one on that list was the finance industry. And
Mm.
out of the survey that we did, 78% of companies in average that got hit by ransomware paid some kind of ransom, whether
Oh.
it was the initial ransom for decryption, secondary extortion, right, for data theft, data destruction, or denial of service attacks. If you look at specific industries, this was kind of a shocking result to us because of our customer base is so big in the healthcare side, and we always
Right.
see it on the news, right? It's 72% paid multiple ransoms of any
Oh.
industry. With specific industries, the highest was 85% at travel and transportation companies.
Oh.
And then finance. Finance was interesting at 80%, telecom 79%, and healthcare was actually at 66%, which was on the lower side.
Hmm.
But when it came to double extortion, it was actually at 79%, right?
Oh. Okay.
And I'm sorry, 76%.
But
So
higher. Yeah.
double extortion hits healthcare significantly. And the amount of ransom paid by healthcare is actually higher than other industries at the end of the day, because hospitals have to operate, right? After a certain amount of time, somebody has to make the decision. They shouldn't, but do you have to pay the ransom to get back online, or can you take another week or two to recover?
Right. And the answer is they can't in many cases. And I think one of the I
Yeah.
would guess one of the issues there is that hospitals obviously have all that exceptionally sensitive information, patient information, so they can't let that be compromised if there's anything they can do. Is that play a role in it?
Yeah, I mean, your patient information follows you everywhere, right? Your health ID is there. It's if you look at what's really unique in healthcare is it's children's health, number one on
Mm,
the list, right? Their
mm,
patient record for a 5-year-old, a 1-year-old,
mm,
a 17-year-old, that's their record for life. It follows
yeah,
them now with the modern EMR from one
right.
healthcare system to another. And that's where adversaries and threat actors and bad actors can sell that information.
Mhm.
And then they target the healthcare organization's consumer because their identity and their patient record is their patient record, right? That's where they commit fraud at the end of the day.
Right.
And that's really becoming more and more problematic now and well known in the
Hmm.
adversarial space.
Well, I guess then the big question is, and you're so close to the market. I mean, I'm sure people want to hear what advice do you have for hospital administrators that have been impacted by ransomware? How should they handle it? What are your thoughts?
It comes down to what everybody in the industry says, right? It's preparation. I think what a lot of companies and people in cyber don't understand is unless you come from healthcare, you don't understand the complexity of
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
hard it is to do healthcare operations and then clinical operations and then IT operations on top of that.
Hmm.
All of these have to work in harmony day to day just to get patient care done, to get revenue cycle done, right? Get patients in and out the door and literally deliver care to them. I mean, what I always tell them is like healthcare organizations know their business better than anybody else. They know
Right.
their patient care business, they know their revenue cycle business, they know how to access their patients, they know how to get their clinicians to where they need to be. And the best thing to do is keep doing simulations and tabletop exercises at the leadership and at the technical and tactical level. Muscle memory becomes very, very important, right? And really, healthcare systems have to leverage what they have. And they should also bring in external experts that are not healthcare experts, but expert counsel from the cybersecurity side and the law side of the house and liability side.
Hmm.
Leverage their cyber insurers, right?
Okay.
Leverage their cybersecurity partners that have dealt with other events happening in the ransomware space. So we knowledge share with them. And then what is really most important is everybody says people, process, and technology. Having done incident response over and over in major breaches, its technology is as good as the people that manage it and the processes that are implemented,
Hmm.
right? It becomes chaotic. That's where muscle memory and practice really helps. And they need to focus on the top three things we focus on during the actual incident. It's get clinicians online, get clinical systems online and patient management systems, and then payroll, revenue cycle, and everything else. So they should spend time to really understand what it takes to recover those systems in a sanitized state to continue business operations.
I guess okay, good. That makes a lot of sense. I want to make sure I'm showing the difference between. It sounds like some of those ideas are what happens if you are involved in the attack, which is exactly what people want to know. The other part of that seems to be how do you prevent it in the first place? I guess so. The question is, what are best practices for improving operational resiliency? I guess how do you make it so it never happens in the first place?
It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Any technology you implement is going to have some kind of vulnerability or flaw, right? That's what the adversaries are after. You can
Hmm.
spend all the money in the world on cybersecurity technology, protecting your perimeter, putting defense in depth into place. Something will fail, right?
Hmm.
To me, where resiliency comes in is having a plan for when technology fails or has a vulnerability,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
People resiliency is number one on the list. Your technology can be resilient as you want, but make sure, again, your people are resilient. You have a backup plan for your people. You have out of band communication for them. They have a process in place where people will get burned out when events happen. And my number one rule is assume breach, right?
Is
That's
what? I'm sorry.
assumed breach.
Assume the breach. In other words, it's going to happen, which
It's
seems
going to
sort of
happen.
tragic in a sense, but okay, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we as Semperis tell all of our customers. That's what we talk about in the industry. It's at some point, there's always an identity that is compromised. There's a
Hmm.
system that's compromised. There's third-party risk. It's a lot for a CISO to manage.
Hmm.
And best practice for me for operational resiliency is assume that you're always in a breach state and make resiliency part of your day-to-day operations.
So it's almost like don't let your guard down. You're always in the middle of a
Yeah.
battle. The battle never stops. You've got to be battle ready at all points. There's something unfortunate about that, but it seems very realistic.
Yeah. Just because you bought technology, is it implemented right? Is there care and feeding, right? Are you retooling the technology when you need to? Do your people know how to use that technology? Are you upskilling them when you need to?
Hmm.
Can you rely on your third parties when you need to? I mean, resiliency should be day-to-day operations, not when you need it.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, if I look ahead to the future, I have this sort of optimistic, maybe naive vision that, oh, it's not going to be so bad in the future because we're going to realize that the bad actors took advantage of this vulnerability and this vulnerability and this vulnerability. Now we've cured them. We know that technology always has a flaw. I think it's a really good point you make, but that the flaws are so tiny and they're harder to breach now. We're gonna get to some place in the next few years where this is far less of a problem. Is that a realistic vision, or is that just way too optimistic at this point?
I think that's way too optimistic. Honestly, the way I look at it, think about how much technology we've embraced and implemented, not just in healthcare, everywhere in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
What technology are we going to implement now, right? The more technology we implement, the more reliance we have on that day to day. Me as
yeah,
a patient and a consumer rely
right.
on it every single day, right?
Yep.
Hospitals rely on it to improve operations and efficiency. And we're just introducing more and more, which means more complexity, right? I would be optimistic if technology was becoming less complex, and I'd be way more optimistic there, right?
Hmm.
But now we just keep throwing more technology to solve the cybersecurity problem. Then we throw on more technology to solve the operational problem that cybersecurity causes for friction, right? It's a never ending. Now the
Right.
bad actors have access to the technology as well.
Well,
So
it's true, and sometimes I think, since I cover the tech market day in and day out, I am amazed at the complexity, as you say. It's like it is only getting more complicated. And I've talked to some of the most advanced professionals, and they say to me, "Oh no, no, it is. It's far more complicated than it used to be." Sometimes I think we're going to collapse under the weight of our own complexity. But be that as it may, I guess. All right, you made some really good points. In closing, anything you want to make sure you get said to hospital administrators about ransomware? You said it, but any closing comments?
my biggest thing is talk to each other, right? As hospital administrators, as the cybersecurity folks, the technical leadership, the tactical practitioners in cybersecurity,
Hmm.
focus on continuous incident response and reach out to your peers in the industry. Talk to them, right? Talk to organizations that have had events and just have open dialogue with them because what I've seen is we in cybersecurity and healthcare share as much as we can that we're allowed to. And that's probably the most important tool in our tool belt.
That sounds like a really powerful tool. That's a great piece of advice. Marty, I think you said it. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise today, and I hope you come back and talk with us again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, James. Thank you for having me on.